All right, we're recording. Hello and welcome, everyone, to the first 100% Producers virtual podcast we're doing here. Obviously, we're still in lockdown, but, we're all holding out strong and we're giving to the community while the community are all stuck at home, probably bored out of their minds like we all are. So anyway, obviously this is the podcast. We're going to be discussing various questions relating to the music industry. And we've also got plenty of wonderful guests to give their opinions on the questions that are being asked. And obviously they'll be able to debate their opinions between one another and see how everyone feels about everything. So so I think we should start off with introducing everyone here. So obviously we've got Jaison Jeyaventhan, Anya Louisa, Slayer, and Panda. Jaison, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Okay, so my name is Jaison, I'm 18, and I've been 100% Producers for almost 2 years now. I'm a singer-songwriter and producer, and I do a lot of pop stuff. I'm very much into very pop artists like Taylor Swift, and so that's what I'm going to be talking a lot about today.
All right, good to know, good to know. Okay, Anya, you can go next.
Okay, I'm Anya. I'm also 18 and I'm a singer-songwriter. And obviously I've been friends with Jaison for like a couple months now, and he kind of got me into doing all of this 100% stuff. I'm really excited to be like a guest today. And I'm the same. I'm kind of mostly inspired by people like Taylor. So I'm going to be like talking a lot about that today as well.
Okay, good to know, good to know. Slayer, you can go next. Introduce yourself.
I'm Slayer, rapper, producer, DJ, presenter. I do a lot. I'm not going to get into all of it right now. One of the producers at 100%. And I also studied a diploma for 3 years about music industry, so I have a lot of knowledge on it. So
yeah, a lot of knowledge indeed. That's definitely going to come in handy for the podcast. And finally, Panda, would you like to introduce yourself?
My rapper name is Panda. Producer, rapper, songwriter. I play classical piano. I've been in 100% for about 2 years now, I think. I've been doing music since I was a kid, I guess. Yeah, that's about it, really.
All right, cool. So, very interesting things, very different, musical influences, ways that we all got into music, which is going to be interesting. So, obviously now we go into the questions, and we've got one main question, and then we've got some kind of semi questions that we can slide in here and there. So anyway, the first question is: should artists have complete ownership of their own music? I think we'll start off with everyone giving their own opinion, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to ask one person to compare their own opinions to somebody else, and then those two can debate their opinions and see, not who's correct, but just compare the opinions to see, to see the results. So let's start with Anya. How do you feel about the question?
Well, I've always thought that artists, if they are the kind of main person in the creative process, whoever is part of that creative process should own the music. I don't think that anyone else should be entitled to own the masters or be able to choose what the artist does with those masters, and whether they're allowed to perform them or whatever they want to do with them. I just don't think that should be in the control of anyone else but the artist, because it's their work.
Okay, cool. Okay, fair enough. Obviously, we accept all opinions here, so that's fine. Panda, how do you feel about the question?
So I think that the artist should own all of their music unless they have signed an agreement with, let's say, a record label or a producer or a mixer, and have agreed upon terms, maybe for them to take 5% or 10% of the music. I also believe that if you do sign an agreement where you give someone else the ownership rights to your masters, you can't then 10 years down the line, if you become super famous, be like, actually, I want my masters back. You'd have to obviously buy it back from them because you signed it away in the first place.
Okay, fair enough, Jaison, how do you feel about it?
I agree with Anya in the sense that all artists should own their work. If you have an idea and if you're in charge of the creative work that goes behind making a song or an album, I think you should be responsible for getting the money and the credit for the work that you put in. And it's not fair that someone who doesn't have a hand in, writing the song or producing it or staying in the studio to help you with something, they shouldn't be, getting any credit or contributions if they haven't put any work in. So for that reason, I believe that artists should own their own work fully.
Okay, agreeing with another point that was previously mentioned. Fair enough. And finally, Slayer, how do you feel about it?
I think artists, if they're independent, they should definitely own 100% of their royalties. Obviously, providing splits to producers, songwriters, and management, or whoever else. But I think like once you sign to a label, because a label will give an artist an advance payment, which could be in the hundreds of thousands, could be in the millions even. And basically, that payment is literally, it's a check that you basically sold your rights to the record label.
Yeah.
So basically, artists don't really sell as much anymore. So they've had to make money in other ways, such as touring or brand deals. But the record labels don't really make money off that as much. So what they've done is they've created a deal which is called a 360 deal, which they recuperate money off all aspects of an artist's career. It's not going to be as much as when it comes to song royalties, but it's still going to be significant enough that they're not in the red. And basically, artists don't actually recuperate their actual earnings until they've basically made back that advance check. So even if they've made that back through touring or brand deals, if they still haven't sold the amount that the advance is worth, then they're still in debt to the label, which I feel like that's okay if it's clear.
Okay. So this is interesting, obviously, because we have two major sort of like ideas and opinions behind it. We've got Jaison and Anya, who are on the believe the artists, regardless of if they're signed to record labels or not, should have full rights to their music. And then on the other side, we've got Slayer and Panda, who believe that that artists, if they're signed to a record label, then they should, they should give up their right percentages, based on how many the record labels say, even if that was a long time ago and they've gotten rich and famous since they signed those records. So what we'll do now is I'll select one person and I'll say, is there somebody here who you think you disagree with their opinion on this, and then the two of them can give their own debate about it. So Panda, is there anyone here who you particularly disagree with? It's okay if you say no, but figured.
I would say probably Jaison.
And your reason for that is?
He believes that obviously all of the 100% of the music rights should go to the artist, whereas I believe that if you sign an agreement with a label where you, let's say, cut out 20%, then you don't own 100% of, and you don't deserve 100% of the rights anymore, and your masters can be used however the label wants it to be used if they own the rights to it. Whereas I assume that Jason believes that the artist should own the masters at all costs.
Okay, Jason, do you believe in that, or do you have anything?
Okay, what I'd like to say to Oscar's point is that sometimes record labels don't have artists' best interests at heart. Yes, they just want to make money, but sometimes when you've been in a contract for many years, you build a relationship of trust, and that's something that not all record labels have, especially in the industry today. There's lots of instances where that's happened. And it's not fair that artists should put their trust in record labels, and then build this relationship and then afterwards they'll go on to just sell them away, sell their work that they've spent ages doing, putting their heart and soul and blood, sweat and tears into that, for someone just to sell it to whoever's paying the highest price, even if that's someone who doesn't really care about them, doesn't care about their music, but just knows that it's going to make a lot of money. So I think it's not fair that, yes, okay, if record labels want to own work, why should they be selling it off or giving it away or using it for another purpose that's not going to benefit the artist?
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that point. If you buy a TV, if you decide you want to sell it, then you're entitled to sell it. So when it comes to the music industry, how is it any different? And I say TV just as any example, it could be anything whatsoever. But yeah, when it comes to the music industry, I don't see how that's any different. If you sold your work to somebody, you can't get mad with if they sell it to somebody else. You sold it to them already. You therefore have no say so in the ownership of it.
I mean, going back to your TV analogy as well, is obviously if you do, let's say, sell a TV, right? Somebody has had to make that. They spent time and effort, as you said with your music. You spend time and effort to make said TV, but somebody else gets to sell it to whoever they want because they own it.
Yep.
You can say about how much effort you put into your music, but if you've signed away the rights already to a label, you haven't got a say in it at that point. They can decide who they want to sell it to and how much money they can make from it.
I was just saying that I don't think it's comparable, like songwriting. I don't think it's comparable to like something that's been manufactured, because if you pour your heart and soul and emotions into a song, and then, you get, a lot of people do get tricked into signing contracts which they don't understand, especially because a lot of people do it when they're really, really young, like 14, 15. And then later on down the line, there's a misunderstanding or you get cheated by your record label. That's not the same thing, because they might have the legal rights to sell your music, but it doesn't take the emotional aspect out of the music that has been made. So I think it's way different when we're talking about music.
I would argue with that point about the underage signing, just to say that obviously if you do sign a contract when you're below the age of 18, you can make it null and void and therefore renegotiate the terms at a later point. And at that point, nobody owns any of your music.
Okay. Does anyone have anything to say about that? About how people who are under the age of 18 signing to record labels? Because we've seen examples about that in the music industry before. And so, does anyone have anything they want to say about that?
Yeah, I'd say if you're gonna sign underage, well, by law already you have to have your parents sign it as well. So, like with any legal document, well, most legal documents, your parents have to sign it as well. So you can't say, "Oh, I was underage, I didn't know." Not only do your parents have to sign it, you also have the internet. The music industry has been going on for, let's say, 100 years. It's something around that. I'm not sure the exact length, but I'm aware it's something like that. As in, the first record label was created around 100 years ago, give or take. So yeah, there's countless examples of artists being screwed over. You can easily Google what is a industry standard record contract, what is the standard terms. You can easily find this stuff out on the internet within a couple minutes. So to say the label don't have your best interests, that's correct. But I mean, like with any business, because it's called the music business, the most important thing is to make money. And yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so I feel like this is definitely a perfect point to segue into the next question, because we all talked about record labels, you know, in some way, and of course, record labels in the music industry are very important. So the next question is: do you think record labels in their current form should still exist?
I think that like the most important point about today is that they're not as essential as they used to be, because social media and the ability to kind of get so popular so quickly, even with things, if you think about stuff like TikTok, there are musicians, obviously there are a lot of people who aren't musicians, but there are musicians being discovered on there like every day. So if you just build up your own platform, and I think the most important thing is to contact like a publishing company and have a publisher like working with you. Record labels are as crucial as they used to be, because they used to be the only artists kind of, you know, views and to like get them more seen anymore, because you can do promotions by yourself on Instagram. So.
Slayer, how do you feel about the existence of record labels in their current form today?
I think it works. It definitely works. But I mean, like, if the big artists such as like Drake, if they decide, because Drake, his contract with Cash Money is coming up to an end, so it's round about renegotiation time. If he decides he doesn't want to re-sign to a label, then that the trickle effect of that is going to be astronomical. I mean, if the biggest artists out there can literally survive without a record label, that means any artist can survive without a record label, and literally every other artist is going to follow suit. Maybe not straight away, maybe 10, 15 years down the line, but eventually every artist majority of artists, I should say, are going to follow suit, and quite rightly so. I mean, the record label isn't within the best interest of an artist, it's within the best interest of business. Mm-hmm. Someone like Drake, I believe he will re-sign because his lifestyle is very expensive. He runs a plane, he has multiple properties, multiple businesses, and multiple people that he's providing for as well. So I believe he's going to re-sign, but I think it's going to be for probably the biggest check ever in history, something probably like $500 million, so about 500 million, may even be more, and they'll probably give him back at least most of his masters, throw in like Michael Jackson or Prince or whoever else that he wants. And yeah, he's going to be like one of the most powerful artists about, and that's only a good thing. I mean, if we want to say artists write things or whatever, I'm not saying Drake writes his or Drake doesn't, but we're going to say they put their passion into it. They should be entitled to own it, yes, but if they sign a contract, then they don't. So my other point is that streaming services, they're probably going to start opening record labels over the next few years, such as like Spotify or Apple Music, because they already own the platform. They already had the connection with the publishers. and therefore the connection with the artist. So the artist might just sign directly to the streaming services.
Okay. Okay. And going back to the other point you made, you're saying that Drake is, if he re-signs to the record label that he's currently signed to, once his contract ends, you're saying that that all of the fame and all of the money that he's gotten from that is based purely from the record label that he signed to. Is that essentially what you're saying?
I mean, before he signed his deal, Drake was a child actor. That's what people knew him as, Aubrey Drake Graham. He is known as a child actor, and then he signed to like Cash Money, which is through Republic, I think, and therefore that's through Universal, I think. Not 100% sure, but yeah. So he's basically also his deal is a very interesting deal because unlike near enough any other artist, there's probably maybe 5 artists in the industry, and I'm not sure if they still all have it, but Drake has an unlimited budget. So if he used to go independent, he's no longer going to have an unlimited budget. Granted, he does have a lot of money. There's millions on the table, but when you have all these record labels dividing it, it eats up the money. So, and then you've got to pay your taxes and pay your personal team and songwriters, and yeah, it ends up being a lot smaller than it is. Drake is still a millionaire. It's still probably got hundreds of millions, or is worth hundreds of millions. But I mean, it's different.
Okay, cool. How do you feel about the question, should record labels still exist? You're muted. Yeah.
Okay, I'm back now. I think with record labels, the thing about record labels is that they do help with promoting an artist, but nowadays, thanks to social media, and like Anya was talking about TikTok, and you've got Instagram, you've got all these platforms that you can promote your music. It's so easy just to pay a short price and then promote your music on a platform, and then people can just view your video and then click on your song afterwards. So I think before, obviously, we were so reliant on CDs, and you got to send a demo CD to a record label for them to sign you. But now you can just, send them a link, send a file. It takes like 2 seconds, and it's very quick. So I think record labels were a thing of the past, and yes, they do help now. But if you manage to build your image and your look and your presence as an artist, then you can own whatever you like. And that's the good thing about owning your masters and owning yourself as a musician, is that you're responsible for how you grow and what you put in, and how you contribute. So I think that's the most important thing. So record labels are good, but I feel like they're not as useful as they were in the past.
Okay, cool. Interesting. So, okay, and then finally, Panda, how do you feel about the existence of record labels?
I don't think they'll ever die out. I don't think that's possible, really, because when you're an artist, so before you get signed, obviously, all your money, all your resources go into making your music. And let's say you have an album that does a decent amount of success, right? You won't see any money for 6-7 months. And at that point, what are you going to do for that period of time to work on your next album? This is where stuff like advances really work well with record labels. And it's advances like these that make them so so easy for the community, almost for the music community, to create new works, because without that advance of like maybe 40 grand or something, artists will have to still be working a 9-to-5 job every day to pay for stuff like rent and everything, and have to wait because 6-7 months until they actually see any money come back. Now, unless Spotify starts giving money out almost instantly and actually changes the way that revenue is collected, I think record labels will always be quite useful and will always be needed in the industry.
Okay. So so it seems like we've got a sort of like a 3-1 divide here. Seems like we've got Anya, Jaison, and Slayer, who seem to say that record labels, really, I wouldn't exactly say shouldn't exist, but probably for them personally, they have like no need for record labels. I say, like, correct me if I'm wrong by saying that, but I think that's what I was getting from everyone. And then there was Panda, who said that record labels probably never will go away because of all of the advances that people get based on funds and all that, which is an interesting way to think about it. So I feel like that goes into the next question. Obviously, we were talking about how we all relate to it, which is and the next question is, how do you feel the existence of record labels and other people potentially owning your work? How do you feel like that affects your musical future within like the next 10 something years? Jaison, you can go first.
Okay, so with me as a songwriter and as an artist and someone who kind of makes all my music myself, I wouldn't want anyone else owning bits that I make. I don't think it's fair that if I put lots of work into making my own music and then someone, yes, they're going to give me some promotion, they're helping me to get there, but if they weren't part of the creative process and the musical process, I don't think it's fair. And especially, with like I said earlier about the whole social media presence, having, if you're able to promote yourself and if you go about, doing this the right way, then you can make it there, do it yourself. There's loads of artists who were obviously signed before and things went wrong, and now they're making so much money. And now when these record labels sell their old music in an attempt to try and make more money, their fans are like, no, we're not going to buy from you because we know that you stripped off her an artist's work, so we're not going to buy from you. We're going to buy from our artist, our favorite artist who owns their own work. So I think, what's the point of having record labels? If you're just going to sell your work, your fans are going to know. They're the ones who are going to be like, no, we're not going to buy from you because you ruined this artist's life. We're going to buy from all our new music now. So that's how we're going to be doing it. So I don't think in 10 years time we want like artists to be stripped off their work by record labels.
Okay, interesting. And okay, cool. Slayer, how do you feel about how all of this affects your music career?
Me personally, I'm an independent artist, but what I have done is psychologically I've signed myself to my own label, to my own imaginary label. And I think a lot of independent artists or even upcoming artists should sign themselves to their own imaginary label and run it as a business, because everything that Jaison just said sounds like it's from a moral point of view, whereas this is business, it's the music business. There's no time for morals when it comes to business. Like, it's all about making money. That's the only thing that people really care about in business. Like, the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, he cares about making money. He probably doesn't care, and he probably has a horrible track record when it comes to pollution and when it comes to other things. But he cares about making money, and he's the richest man in the world. So, like, if you want to be the most successful artist or even successful, like, you got to kind of leave the morals at the table, leave the morals at home. Like the rest of the industry aren't gonna come very morally sane all the time, you know. And it's not like I've been saying, it's not about morals. It's about making money. And if a record label's promoting you or whatever, they're putting their money in, they have to recuperate in some way. If not from royalties, then how do you suggest that they do recuperate their money?
Okay, fine. Anya, how do you feel about it?
I wouldn't want like something that I'd written to be owned by somebody else. And I think just like going back to the thing about like morals versus making money in business, I just think one of the most common misconceptions is I don't think that's true at all, because if you look at some of the most influential people around the world who are kind of, you know, like philanthropists, and, you know, they do everything they can to help causes they believe in, like Leonardo DiCaprio, for example, or Angelina Jolie, like both part of the UN, and they work to make things better for the environment and, you know, every cause that they believe in. But they also have a massive, so I don't think you have to sacrifice your morals to do well in business. And I think that, you know, if a record label is potentially selling an artist's masters to somebody else, they don't have to make that, you know, as cruel a transaction as possible. They can, you know, if you have to sell them, you know, sell them to the right person. Don't sell them to someone that is clearly gonna try and hurt the artist when they own them. I just don't think that is a necessary move.
Panda, how do you feel about how, you know, all the talk about, you know, sacrificing morals for the record industry and even just like the existence of record labels themselves? How do you feel like all of that combined affects your own musical future?
I mean, for me, if I want somebody to own part of my work, I will give them the rights for that. I will sign it off. If I don't want them to have it, I won't sign the contract. It's as simple as that. I do think also, as we were talking about the master and who you sell them to, it all depends on you know, the court of law and the court of public opinion, really. Whereas, like, if you have the right to sell to whoever you want, surely you have the right then to sell it to the highest bidder. But in the court of public opinion, if you sell it to the worst person in the entire industry, you might get slandered for it in the press. So it really depends. I think thinking about it morally is pointless, because frankly, people are going to do whatever they do, and they're going to try and make money either way. I think the only way to really not let that happen is to not sign away your master rights, and to not sign away 30% of your music, for example. If you don't want them to have any of it, don't sign it away. Simple as that, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just want to add on to what Panda just said. And yeah, if you don't want to sign, don't sign, and do the research, because like an artist like XXXTentacion, RIP, but when he was signing his record deal, he put on the table. He actually wrote a demo contract, and he put on the table what he's prepared to give up, and then basically the record label they negotiated, and then they rewrote the contract just for like legal terms, whatever, and pretty much because of that, he got like I don't know exactly the figure, but I think it was like 10 million for like 2 or 3 albums. So like, even though he's dead, now them 3 albums have been released, and even if there was no other music, like even if there was other music, even he's no longer obligated. So his family is no longer obligated. And what happens with royalties is, I think it's 70 years after the last writer on a song dies, and then it goes into public domain. That means anyone in the public can use it without paying, without having to pay royalties, which is very good. Like a lot of people will sample like classical music because it's done a long time ago. Like, whereas you might hear a song that you like today and you can't sample it because, or you might be able to, but it's for independent artists or upcoming artists, it's literally impossible to get a hold of the sample owner. And I mean, the original person who created the sample, they might not even own it. For example, like if say there's a theme song on a TV show and that's sampled into a beat, and then you use that for your track. Say that's your main single for your album. Say that song gets major radio playlist, so A-list playlist on Radio 1, Capital, Kiss, all the major stations. Say it goes platinum, say it goes #1, like, because it's like impossible to get a hold of them. Like, they can literally offer any amount that they want. Like, for example, Juice WRLD, another R.I.P. His producer sampled, I think it's called "Shape of You" by Sting. Really iconic song. And what a lot of artists do is, because they know that this is a popular song, they're putting their own spin on it. And because of that, there's a new fresh take on it. And granted, that song's been sampled like tons of times. Like I think Diddy sampled it, and I think he took about 100% royalties because it was just too close. And the difference with Juice WRLD is he made a completely different song. But I mean, without that sample, if you take that sample out of it, and it wasn't even a sample, it was an interpolation. So the difference is basically replaying the keys. Sampling is usually, using the master recording. But yeah, because it was an interpolation, it wasn't, he didn't take all of it because, yes, it was a brand new song, but it wouldn't have been anything without that sample. And I think that's important. I think the whole sampling business needs to be a lot more easier for independent artists.
We've gone over various questions, heard many different points of views, and overall, I think it went pretty well. We had a bit of technical difficulties as well, but what good show doesn't have a few technical difficulties?
Yeah,
so,
Exactly.
Okay. Does anyone else want to quickly add anything before we end? Okay, that's fine. So I think we'll end stuff there. So thank you all for tuning in. Obviously, this will be up on YouTube and potentially Spotify in the next couple of weeks. And I think we all had a fun time doing it. So and hopefully we have more podcasts similar to this in the future. So yeah, all good. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.